This is the Middle-earth philosopher. When it comes to divine spirits of Middle-earth, the most active participants are easily the Maiar. Some we are already familiar with, such as Sauron, Valarin, aka Gandalf, and Melian. But the one that most intrigues me is the one that is often overlooked, Osse. Just a brief recap here, Osse served under Ummo, my main Valar, as the lord of the inland seas and coastal areas, whereas Ummo usually handled everything in the deep depths of the sea, though he was also known from time to time to travel up rivers and streams as well during the First Age. Osse is one of the only spirits mentioned more than once by name during the First and Second Ages, but largely this was because he had a sus reputation. He had, briefly for a time, served under Melkor, Water Balrog anybody? And had been responsible for the Isle of Valar off the coast of Beleriand when he chose to basically disobey the Valar and persuade some of the Sindar elves into staying, whereas they were all supposed to leave. And, as far as the Númenóreans were concerned, they respected him, but barely could trust him, if even that. So, essentially, you could say Osse is one of the bad boys of the Ainur. Or, at the very least, an angry emo boy. I think. But all of this bears asking what he would have been if he had remained under Melkor's service, because I think there is a close relation. As most fans and Tolkien scholars know, Osse's temperament was crazy and all over the place, and he had a wild and uncontrollable nature. He likes to wreck shit, and therefore it's easy to see not only how he would end up serving Melkor on his own narcissistic quest for domination, but also that it probably wasn't that hard for Melkor to convince him to turn. And if he started doing any of his crazy shit, you know damn well that Melkor would quickly put him back in his place. Seriously though, Osse has more in common with the Balrogs than any of the other spirits of Valinor. Both have destructive natures, it seems, and are very powerful in their own right. And it would seem that their only real difference was that he was associated with water, whereas the Balrogs were associated with fire. And this also bears some curious questions as to what his appearance would have been like as well, if he would have been a Balrog-esque water Maiar, possibly, or what, while he was serving as Melkor's coastal wrecking machine. On further examination, though, I did find that there was another difference between them that was much more subtle and easy to miss. While Osse was wild and uncontrollable, he was never acting out of sheer malice, whereas the Balrogs did. Osse liked to wreck shit, but he wasn't about destroying people's lives. Necessarily, at least. Osse basically lived by his emotions and how he felt, and those emotions actually had some nuance to them. For example, he was close to the Falathrim and the Sindar on both sides of Middle-earth, and he liked to have them as friends, which I think was because he probably had very few of friends given his reputation among the Valar and in Valinor. He wasn't always out for wanton destruction 24/7. Osse was just overly passionate, maybe the most passionate of any of the Maiar, and had little to no control over his emotions. We all know people like this in real life, I think. People who can be happy and the center of the party at one moment, and a split second later cussing somebody out because they stepped on his shoe and getting into a fist fight. That's Osse. And I find this fascinating because of the ramifications this would have had. Uinen, his wife, is considered the only way to have controlled him before Ummo would have probably had to put a beat down on him just to get him under control. This is why the Númenóreans were always praying, Uinen, please control your ratchet of a husband while we leave port during the Second Age, Uinen was more or less everyone's representative to talk to Osse because, short of being overpowered, the guy was not going to listen to anybody else. It was that simple. I really would have liked to have seen what their relationship was in more detail, because Osse and Uinen remind me very much of Ainur and Nurdinel, both being power couples where the husband was a hothead and the wife was the voice of rationale and reason. Osse's reputation among Valinor, therefore, must have pretty much been in the gutter, or at least very close to it, because not only was he a wild card, as it were, but had also played a direct part in the destruction of the original Middle-earth. Yes, he repented, but only because Uinen convinced him, not because of his own agency where he felt some sort of guilt about what he did. Unlike the Noldor, who had repented after Alqualande and returned to Valinor to be pardoned. We already see how some of the Valar viewed Melkor's repentance, after all, after his first capture. So how much more would have been the case with Osse? Hell, if the Valar had caught all the remaining Balrogs and spirits that served under Melkor during the First Age, during his first capture, we would have had a Middle-earth version of the Nuremberg trials. The Valinor trials, if you will. And I think that would have been very interesting. Moreover, though, if Osse had stayed true to Melkor's legacy past the First Age, and Umul had, for whatever reason, not given him the beatdown of an eternity for whatever reason, I can also see him and Sauron not getting along. Sauron was the opposite of Osse in almost every way. Cunning, calculating, strategic, and could act out of cruelty and malice, but was capable of concealing it from everyone else until much further down the line into the Third Age. It's said that Sauron wanted to bring order to Middle-earth, and Osse's unpredictable and uncontrollable nature went completely against that goal. At best, Osse's only focus would still be the coast of the world, not anything inland. At worst, it would have been a rival realm to Sauron even, one that would have mirrored his own realm so much in terms of the hierarchy of power that existed. And I'm pretty sure that if that had been the case, Sauron would have to deal directly with Osse himself. And that would have been interesting. Osse versus Sauron. Would it have resulted in a smackdown between the two? Maybe. Given that even during the First Age, Sauron was regarded as the most powerful of Morgoth's servants. So maybe without Morgoth around, they would have at least had a face-off. And if Osse wasn't intimidated, then pretty much all hell on the coast would have broken loose. But at the same time, Sauron also didn't try to bring Durin's Bane or Smaug under his service either. And Smaug was as much a wildcard as Osse was, because while Smaug was not ruled by his emotions, he still served nobody but himself and what he wanted to do. There is one more parallel, though, between Sauron and Osse that I want to mention, and that is that Osse is essentially Sauron had he chosen to remain Mehran in the service of Ale and rejected Melkor's offer to serve him. Both were powerful Maiar. Both walked the dark side, if you will. But only one of them turned back, whereas the other did not. Maybe if Sauron had a confidant or partner who could have taught some sense into him, like Uinen did, maybe Sauron would have remained Mehran. And of course the Middle-earth history would have been massively different. That might bear doing another video on that topic alone. So in other words, Uinen saved not only Osse from Sauron and Morgoth's fate, but also Middle-earth from having basically two overpowered Maiar wrecking it. So next time you go to the beach, you should thank her. And also too, the Valar even more so. Let me know what you think below. Otherwise, this is the Miller Philosopher. Have a good day.